Welcome to Hope Ahead, a journey of infertility. My name is Naomi Ripstein.
And this is Ryan Ripstein.
And this is our story and struggle of trying to conceive.
We hope and pray that by sharing our experiences and trials, we will bring glory to God, awareness to infertility, and also be encouraging to others.
And just a reminder, this is our story and personal experiences. We are not offering medical advice.
Well, we hope you enjoy the discussion, and thanks for listening. Hi, welcome to episode 13 of Hope Ahead.
Woo.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining if you're listening in or watching. Today we're going to talk about some follow-up stuff from the latest medical surgery number 1, kind of exploratory stuff, kind of overview real quick, and then we'll go from there. So I guess we'll start us with a opening prayer, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Dear God, thank you for today. Thank you for this opportunity to share our story and to just use that to glorify you, to glorify the things you're doing in our life, and just in an effort to point others towards you as well. We just pray for those listening and watching, that you would speak to them and our story would speak into their lives as well. Just bless our time together and bless this conversation. Amen.
Amen. Yeah, so as he was saying, this episode is going to be following the first surgery that I had back in August, beginning of August 4th. We had a nice story this last time for episode 12 with our friend Priscilla, and so now we're kind of jumping back into our story. So essentially about 2 weeks after the first surgery, I had my follow-up with the doctor, and we told you guys about what they found, in the sense both my tubes were partially blocked. There was endometriosis in 2 spots, and then I also had PCOS on both ovaries. And there was even some scar tissue, I guess, on my cervix from the LEAP that I had had as a procedure a little over a year ago now. So he kind of cleared that off. So the only things he really took care of in this first procedure was he opened up my fallopian tubes and he cleared off that scar tissue. The stuff for the endometriosis and the PCOS is planned for the second surgery, which is actually a week from tomorrow. So,
yeah, and that was mainly from what he said, from the location of the endometriosis.
It was more involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they can do stuff in the first surgery, but this, he needs a special robot.
He wanted
access
extra control from the robot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but, of course, this is my chance to talk to the doctor and ask him all my questions, because he only talked to Ryan following, because I was still out of it. So, I go in there, bring in the pictures and everything like that. I have my questions, and I'm by myself because Ryan unfortunately had to be out of the country. He was working in India at the time, and so it was unfortunately not good timing for the appointment, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And he was still available, thankfully, via the phone.
Right.
So
I was able to call him on the phone.
Yeah.
We had a speaker intercom.
Yeah, just to
was
kind of
able to
listen
hear.
in. So the nice thing was my doctor seemed very optimistic in the sense of what he found. Didn't seem, overwhelmed or surprised by what was there, even though I'm, of course, a little disheartened. I mean, we'd always thought that endometriosis was a possibility, but to be thrown with PCOS as well, that was quite a shock when I woke up and everything.
Like all of the things.
And so, and I asked some questions, and of course I have some follow-up questions that I've tried to ask him, but hopefully we'll be able to discuss after the second surgery. But, I did get a little emotional talking to him about I didn't really have these symptoms, because like I've mentioned before, us as women, we dismiss a lot of things that we have because we consider it normal passage of being a woman. It's just your cycle. Periods are supposed to be terrible, but if it's too terrible, then maybe that's bad, but all of them. So
and even not even that you were I didn't have the symptoms,
right?
But we had been told, like we've talked about,
that everything was
fine, everything is okay, and whatever symptoms we may or may not have
dismissed a little bit.
We're dismissed as this is not the situation. So it wasn't just that we were ignoring symptoms. It was we were being told it's not
some
that,
of these
or it's
symptoms
probably not
can
that,
be
or whatever
normal,
it was.
right? And it's but when you put them all together, so when I said that to the doctor, and he's like, but you did have signs and symptoms of this. He's like, you really did. I like put it in here as a quote. He's like, we just have now confirmed it.
Yeah.
And so now with his education and experience, to him it's light bulb. He's like, yes.
It's very obvious.
But he was even a little suspect prior to the surgery. He's like, it could be endometriosis causing these cysts on your ovaries that they were able to see with the vaginal ultrasound. He's like, or it could be PCOS. We really won't know until we get in there. So once he got in there and he could visually look at it, then it was confirmed. So I just wish that, once again, there was more awareness out there and different things to help women look for this, and I know that it's surgery and different things like that, and insurance could be an issue, but at the same time, I want to strive to help our fellow couples out, and
Right.
find a solution quicker. So the doctor went in there and he talked about how the selective HSG, which is where they would fill my tubes up and let them drain, both of those tubes were inflamed on both sides, could have been caused from the endometriosis. I think that was like the higher probability, but it also could have been related with the PCOS. And he said that, once this is open, now this is open for a few years. He didn't give like a specific time frame, like 5 to 10 years, but he just said they'd be open for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he talked about how my left ovary was covered in cysts so much that it was entirely smooth. And you want it to kind of have some crevices like a brain or like a raisin in a sense to know that that's a normal looking ovary. So with mine being smooth, there were no crevices.
Right. Basically, it's just so swollen that
So full of cysts.
membrane or whatever it is, the
Yeah.
the skin of the ovary has been stretched like a balloon.
Yeah, it looked like
And
a
it's
fatty
pretty smooth.
tumor. It was kind of
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
And then my right ovary had cysts on it as well, but it was not entirely covered. There was some good tissue on that. And he had suspected maybe that's possibly even where I ovulated from this past cycle. And then endometriosis that I had were in 2 spots. One is close to my bladder, and then there's another spot that's kind of close to my vaginal rectal area. And the one that was near my bladder looked like darker to me on the pictures with like little nodules and stuff. And when I asked him about that, he's like, that's nothing, weird or unusual. He's like, we see stuff like that all the time. His only concern with, since it was close to my bladder, is that doing the robot, they would just want to be careful and maybe have like a urologist in for the next surgery, just because he doesn't know how deep it is. Like sometimes you can have endometriosis turn into adenomyosis, which is when it goes through the tissue of the uterus. So he's not sure if this endometriosis is going into like deeper into my bladder or if it's just superficial. So, and then had the scar tissue on my cervix. So, we fixed one thing, we got rid of bad precancerous cells, and then my cervix got stiff with scar tissue. And so I guess he said that could have been another reason for infertility for that past year. So, but cleared that off, so that's all good. And so I have some stats for you guys. After the appointment, he was on the phone with me listening in and stuff, but I went into the car and I just started filming myself because it was so much information. And I love my doctor that he gives me the stats because that's what I appreciate, and I appreciate his research. But evidently with partially blocked tubes, so he said 64% of the time this is from endometriosis. And it's because the inflammation is caused by the hormonal imbalance in the bad cells. So that's probably why he was suspecting that was more higher the case with me, that the endo had caused my tubes to be partially blocked. And then I did officially ask him, like, do I officially have the diagnosis of endo and PCOS? And he said yes. Because of the amount of cysts on my ovaries, that classifies me into the PCOS, even though I don't have the typical symptoms, like I'm very regular, my hormone levels are normal. Other things that they look for to sometimes that give an indication of PCOS that I didn't necessarily have, but seeing it visually, I am confirmed, and my left ovary during this procedure was worse than my right. So, and I did look up something earlier. I did find a legit article, but I was just comparing what the chances are of having endo versus having PCOS versus having both. And it said PCOS in this article, this was one of the Nationally Certified Institute's article, said it was 20% chance of having PCOS as women, so a higher chance. Some other articles I found said about 10 to 15, but this one said 20. And then endometriosis was the same in multiple articles, 10%. But to have a combination, one article said it was 10% to have PCOS and endo, and another one said 5 to 10. So it is rare to have both, and maybe that's why it got missed, because my symptoms were, a mix of the two, or, like I said, I think endo was more suspicious from previous doctors than the PCOS, but officially have both. So if you are ever questioning that or whatever, this laproscopic really, unfortunately it was surgery, but it really did give a lot of information to know what was going on. And so now when I'm trying to treat something, I'm trying to treat both and not just one over the other. So another thing back with like the ovaries, and I did some research on this too. So my ovaries that the doctor looked at were, my left one was 4 millimeters or centimeters, I can't remember, and then the other one was 8. And so normally the larger one, that's why they were suspect that had been maybe the one I ovulated from. But given the information, sometimes ovaries can be 3 to 5 as well. But when my doctor said, he was like, no, those are normal size ovaries. So even the size of my ovaries were normal. So that's why I probably got missed on the other ultrasound. I mean,
It's gotta be centimeters.
Yeah, I think so.
Millimeters would be,
really small. Sorry,
I was
but
very
I have
much distracted
centimeters.
with that.
Yeah, I have centimeters written in my notes, but then I double checked myself.
Okay.
But anyway, it's just another indication to where possibly that's why it got missed from even when we went to the fertility clinic, to when we were talking to the doctor about IUI and IVF. We did a vaginal ultrasound there. They didn't see any cysts, and my ovaries were within normal range, just like they are now. And so even though I have the cysts and everything like that, because sometimes that's an indication, they're way bigger because they're like super swollen and full of cysts, so they're beyond that 8 centimeters, but mine weren't. So that's another reason that the laproscopic really provided information. So anyway, good to get that transvaginal ultrasound, because that did provide a lot of information. And I would even suggest to you, if you get it done at a certain part of your cycle, like at the fertility clinic, they did it on day 3. And then with the NaPro doctor, I think it was day 19 or something. So I had already, day 26, I had already ovulated coming up on my cycle, and they were able to see it. So by that time, like the hormones had, amped up a little bit more. And so maybe that's a God thing that it also got shown. But taking that during different times of the cycle, I think would be huge for an advancement in our women's health and catching this stuff. So, so kind of like what I had mentioned about like the endometriosis, we know that there's going to be the special robot, which is why it was taking a little bit of time to schedule the appointment. We had to kind of work with our schedule and their schedule and to make sure the robot was available. So we want to make sure it can be used so that it can get that spot close to my bladder, and like I said, the other one. For the ovaries, we'll kind of find out on day of surgery what he decides to do. He plans on like doing like a revision of my ovaries to essentially like take like a little, he showed it as like a little pie cut. To essentially like decrease the volume so that it can shrink down to like that brain-like thing.
I don't quite have my brain wrapped around exactly how it's going to work based on how he described it.
I feel like it's more or less kind of like if it's an inflamed balloon, you kind of do a little puncture and you allow it to...
Is he going to like take stuff out from inside? I don't know. That's what I was
That's
like.
A good question. Yeah.
I was like, to make it smaller, I think you would have to.
It would be to kind of remove and drain some of the cysts.
I'm interested to see what,
so
and we'll let you know. If anybody knows, feel free to write it in the comments if you already know.
Ever had this done? I didn't know that they did this stuff for PCOS. They don't do it for every case because they want to make sure that it's successful and everything like that, depending on, so maybe it's because my hormones are in alignment and certain other things with my health. I have no idea. And he may not do this. He did tell me he definitely will do it on my left. He may not do it on my right. He's like, he's going to look to see how it's looking since there was some healthy tissue there. So we'll see. Yeah,
this one's kind of still a little black box-ish.
Yeah.
We'll just
kind of a little
find
bit
out
more when he gets in there and what he does. So, and I don't even know what he's going to start with first, if he would remove the endo first and then do the ovaries, or if he's going to do the ovaries first. I don't know. So, but positive note.
Yes.
He did tell us that when he does this type of procedure for the ovaries, for the PCOS, that it increases the chances of a pregnancy 70 to 90%.
Yeah.
So hopefully, I mean, it doesn't mean you won't miscarry again, but it means that there should be more of a successful ovulation attempt, and these would be better follicles.
Yeah, like raises the odds up to 70 or 90% chance of success.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we are optimistic for that. Do know that after this surgery, though, I mean, I would love it if we got pregnant by the end of the year. I mean, that would be amazing, and you guys can still be praying for that for us. But in reality, I have to remember my body may need a few cycles to get regulated. Because even after this surgery in August, like, I'm still having some weirdness in my cycle, and this is my third cycle, second full cycle since the surgery, but third cycle into the third. So, so yeah, I mean, I started back on all of my supplements. I did add in some alpha lipoic acid, which is another good antioxidant and good for your liver and for your control with like blood sugar and different things like that. And that's what I'm thinking for the PCOS, but it doesn't hurt for the endometriosis. I added the NAC, the N-acetylene. Oh man, I shouldn't even try it. But it's essentially, it is another thing that's a good antioxidant for like cell regeneration and like health and different things. And it's been proven to be helpful for PCOS and endometriosis. And it's actually even mentioned in It Starts With an Egg. So I had heard of it before, and I think back at the beginning of this year, I had us both on it for like a month or so.
We'll write it up on the screen.
Sure.
In the video when we do the editing later.
N-acetylcysteine is what it is, but anyway.
Yeah.
But I did start a little bit with the Get Project Life tea again. I will admit to you, I have not done it the past week and a half, and that's just because work schedule's been crazy, and I think I've kind of gotten a little bit in a...
Well, you enjoy not being nauseous.
Plugging my nose.
Plugging your nose.
It works. That tea, I still say that tea has been the best tea that I've tried of all the teas.
As far as working, it's not the best tea to drink.
No. Yeah. But, you know, I am really hoping, you know, for my chances to improve, our chances to improve. You know, I do wonder still with some of the stuff that he's fixing, like even in the sense with the scar tissue on my cervix that he fixed, like what's to say that's not going to come back? You know, because she burned off stuff and looked at it, and then he just burned off and cleaned off stuff. I'm like, cells are going to be regenerating to fix the trauma. So I don't know.
It's really,
that's another question to ask.
Like, just crazy everything that he's done, that he's found, right? Like we've talked about, but he's, like you said, he's optimistic, right? And
he has been very encouraging,
confident in like. From what we talked about before until what he saw with the laproscopy, you know, confirming what he saw, he's like, that's kind of what I expected, and you know, and he's still saying, he's like, yeah, we can fix it. It's, you know, we're going to get you in that direction. And now we're kind of at this, I think we talked about it a couple of episodes ago, of this balance between we're excited, but like this cautious
optimistic
excitement of how excited should we let ourselves get, right? And I think, you know, everybody listening that's gone through this is probably nodding their heads right now of like, you know, it's kind of scary to allow yourself to be fully
especially, we've been going through this for over 4 years now, but I mean, even if you're listening for yourself, if it's been the 6 months or the year or whatever, it's one of those things to where you've gone through that heartache and things not working, and maybe you've moved on to the next steps of finding out what to do, or you're talking about it, and somebody gives you a little bit of hope and you are hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time you're like, well, who says this is really going to work, you know?
Right.
But I mean, like with our doctor, you know, he sees this all the time, and like I said, I'm very hopeful in his optimism.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful in the God that we serve.
That's right.
You know, because he
That's where we're at.
led
Yeah,
us
good
to
point.
him, and you know, as you guys know, we hope ahead, and we're striving for that. Doesn't mean that it's easy. Thankfully, I've been very distracted leading up to this surgery,
Mhm.
but it hit me like these past few days. I'm like, it's
It could
next
be.
week.
Yeah.
It's next week, and
Yeah.
what are we gonna do? And what are we gonna do? And then another recovery time. And is this gonna fix this? Is this gonna cause more problems? You know, like those things that your mind can spiral down into.
Mm-hmm.
But just knowing that God is in control. He's the one that led us here, and this is our path right now. And he's still with us. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's just one of those where we're like, shoot, why did it have to be
Yeah.
this situation? So,
Yeah.
but you know, I even back to like with what the doctor was saying, when things were good or whatever. So normally with PCOS, another indication is the AMH. Normally people have an AMH that is higher than 4. And because that means you have a lot of follicles, right? Because you haven't been ovulating and things are not working the way they're supposed to. But like I said, my cycle is very regular. I ovulate every 27 to 29 days. And so we got my AMH tested at the very beginning, you know, after the miscarriage, a year after the miscarriage, and it was like 2.58, which was good for my age at the time. I was 36, maybe 35, almost turning 36.
Mm-hmm.
And then the following year in 21, I was 36 at that time. And, you know, I had started in with some CoQ10, and it went up to 3.3. And then I had it checked again last fall just to kind of make sure things were still good, and it was at 3.0. So all of these numbers are great, and you know, like the AMH is not an end-all be-all. In my case, it's great because it's showing I have plenty of eggs left over and everything, good for my age since I am 38. But I also wonder were any of those numbers slightly faulty because of the PCOS, and you know, it just got missed because once again I was in that normal range.
Right.
So who knows, right? But and I don't know even if like when they test all my numbers after the surgery, they fix my ovaries and they shrink to their normal size and they're not full of all these cysts. What is that number going to be? So, like I said, all these things flowing through my mind.
All these questions. Yeah.
And I did write to my doctor, and he was very wise in what his response was, but it wasn't what I wanted.
Right.
I wrote him in the patient portal like all of my questions, like about some different things that I had been compiling, and he was like, well, you know, these are all excellent questions, and you know, you bring up good points in the research. He's like, but this would be a better discussion to have at your follow-up appointment in person with me. And I'm like, well, shoot. No, I want answers now.
Yeah. Nobody wants to write a big long email.
Yeah,
either,
and I mean, I think I wrote about 4 questions in the thing, and so it probably would have taken a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, you know, we did have a discussion at the end of the appointment, and these numbers may be slightly askewed. I was trying to ask this as well, but he did tell me there's been recent research in the past 2 years that generally women coming into the office with like the heavy bleeding, the painful periods, other signs and symptoms of endometriosis, it's about, I think it was like 65 to 70% of the time that they are diagnosed with endometriosis. But women coming in without these symptoms, but coming in with a miscarriage and infertility, it was 90% of the time it was endometriosis. I do remember that number. That number was 90%. So I was like, whoa, it was so high. But I can't remember if it was 65 to 70 for the other. So anyway, just very fascinating to finally have some answers, but to realize that it's so prominent.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So.
And so impactful. Like I think we mentioned it before. Of the 4 issues that he found, any one of them by themselves, he said, would have probably prevented us from getting pregnant.
Yeah.
So,
My body literally was like this
and
to
we had all
Ryan's.
four. Yeah. It's like if he gets past this one, we've got these.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's all
Barrier after barrier
Yeah.
after barrier. But like we said, we now know a reason and in a sense. But
yeah.
so the scripture that I chose for this week, when we go through this, it's either him or I that are choosing these scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been going through, we're coming up on the end of the year, and this whole story, it kind of just keeps hitting me. It's like, why is this our story? Why is this happening to us? And why is this our cross to bear? But we're able to help people. I can't tell you once again how many people have reached out to me from this podcast and like just opened up about it. It's been psychologically good for me and for us, to talk about it. But the scripture that came to mind was the one. It's from 1 Corinthians 12:9, and it's talking when Paul is kind of asking God because he has like an affliction, like a thorn in his flesh, and he's talking about like, I asked God 3 times, like, please remove this from me, please remove this from me. And God's response is, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. And then Paul responds, he goes, therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. So, just with us going through this hard time, you guys going through this hard time, like these weaknesses, these struggles, I mean, God is glorified through it all, and he is shining through it all. I mean, things are all hunky-dory and perfect, right? We tend to not look at God as much. We kind of turn inward, like it's on ourselves.
Like we're accomplishing it.
Yeah, like it's us. Yeah. And through this whole journey, I mean, even just each step along the way where God provides an answer, or provides a new friend for me, or for Ryan's an opportunity to share, it's like in this moment of weakness and struggles, God is sufficient, and his power does rest on us. So, sorry, a little emotional there, but just kind of brings it all back around, right?
Yeah.
So, I am supposed to close this in prayer, but do you mind closing
I can
us
do
in
that.
prayer?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. Dear God, thank you again for today, and thank you for just this podcast, for giving us the courage to be open and honest with what we're going through and what we're struggling with. And we just pray that this would reach the ears of those who need to hear it, whether watching or listening in. We just pray again that this would guide those to you that need your peace and your rest. Thank you again for Naomi sharing her personal experience through this as well, and for me adding whatever I can. And thank you for today, and we just pray for all those that are listening. Amen.
Amen. Yes. Thank you for joining with me in this journey, and thank you guys for joining with us on this journey and listening in, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah. See you next time.
Bye, guys.